to see.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, look, a cat has decided to join us. I didn't even realize she crept behind me. How is everyone doing this fine Wednesday evening? Welcome to the Secrets of Saturn live stream. I am Jason Lindgren, your host. Joining me this week is Wayne McCroy, Crow 777, and the Great Baldini. So, obviously a lot of crazy stuff going on right now, but we're not going to really talk about that very much. I would like to, let's start off with the easy stuff. Let's talk about Randy from Houston and his product, Lower the Friction. Let's do that and get that out of the way, everyone. Did you know that 85% of your engine wear occurs at startup? Yes, that is correct. And this is where Lower the Friction comes in by putting a protective, lubricating barrier on all moving parts. This now gives you full-time protection to make your engine last longer, run smoother, give you better performance, and improved fuel economy. People across the country are reporting some very exciting results. Go to lowerthefriction.com, place your order, and enter in promo code SOS to get 5% off of your order. That's lowerthefriction.com. Let's get Mike's turned back on here so we don't have any double and triple and quadruple audio. Anyway, if anybody's interested in Randy's product, I have tried it. It does work. I'm getting 3 to 5 miles per gallon extra per fill up, and you only have to do it once a year. You don't have to do it every oil change. So you buy it once, and you're good for a year-ish. It really depends on how much you drive, but usually a year is what they say. But anyway, Welcome, Wayne. Welcome, Crow. And welcome to Great Baldini. Anybody got any opening statements?
Just want to say good evening. Yeah, that's a good one. But anyway,
Okay.
Just want to say good evening to everybody out there, and welcome to Secrets of Saturn Live. You know the usual spiel. Give a shout out to our friends over at the Fringe FM, and just how's everybody else doing tonight? I'm doing well. Had a pretty nice day for the most part. It was beautiful weather for the first time in a long time here in wonderful northeastern Pennsylvania. So got out and enjoyed the weather a little bit today, and was a mighty nice springtime day.
Well, for my part, I'm starting to get blisters on my microphone.
Yeah, I'm with you there, because not only have I been on all the shows with you, I've been visiting with our friends David and Jaron quite a bit. And what else did we do, Crow? We did Beth Martins. We really like her. That was a good show.
Wait a minute, were you cheating on me? Did you just say you were cheating? No. Yeah, Beth Martins actually did a knock-up job. The perspective she comes from is unique and interesting. The way she handled the interview was par excellence, and her production value is good. So everything good there. And plus, she's nice.
She's very nice. I really like her. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So her show is called The King Hero's Journey. She does kind of her own version of the hero's journey and applies it to a more realistic life kind of thing. I'm not very good at describing what exactly she does, but we really like her. She did a great job. So go check her out. The Great Baldini, would you like to make an opening statement?
Well, I said it was poppycock, but it's beautiful here in Seattle. It's a gorgeous day other than the spray. They keep putting in 5G everywhere while we're locked down here, so it's pretty exciting. I haven't gotten out any napalm yet, but I'm pretty proud of our friends over in the UK who keep burning them down. Seems as fast as they can put them up, so I like that. But yeah, but I haven't started yet.
I'm wondering if we've revived the word poppycock. Maybe we should get a new one like hullabaloo or something.
I don't know. I think of poppycock. I think of Stewie. It's like, look, Lois, I put naughty writing on the wall. It says poppycock.
Yeah, but balderdash.
Balderdash, Brian. That's balderdash.
I used that not too long ago.
So,
actually,
yeah.
You should probably copyright that one, Baldini. It fits.
Baldini dash.
Baldini dash.
That's when
a great
Baldini
Balder
runs
dash.
really fast.
There you go. No, it's great to be here with such great minds. Always a pleasure to join in and visit with the folks. So glad to be here.
So we got 2 super chats already. Thank you so much to you folks. Kevin for $7.77. I see what you did there, Kevin. And where's the other one? Learning to Fly for $5. You know, every time I see Learning to Fly, I just think of that really good Pink Floyd song off of the Division Bell. Learning to Fly says, paused hour 2 of episode 210 to come over. Thanks all. You are welcome. Thank you. So before we get into tonight's topic, I did a little voiceover cut of a very recent article that Henry Kissinger put out in the Wall Street Journal, and I would like you all to take a few minutes to take a listen to that and mind the words and the wording that Mr. New World Order uses. We're all going to sit back and relax for a minute, and chat room, I'd love to hear what you think of this after it's done. Let me kill the mics so we don't have any echoes going on. Written by Henry Kissinger for the Wall Street Journal, published on April 3rd, 2020. The coronavirus pandemic will forever alter the world order. The U.S. must protect its citizens from disease while starting the urgent work of planning for a new epoch. The surreal atmosphere of the COVID-19 pandemic calls to mind how I felt as a young man in the 84th Infantry Division during the Battle of the Bulge. Now, as in late 1944, there is a sense of inchoate danger, aimed not at any particular person, but striking randomly and with devastation. But there is an important difference between that faraway time and ours. American endurance then was fortified by an ultimate national purpose. Now, in a divided country, Efficient and far-sighted government is necessary to overcome obstacles unprecedented in magnitude and global scope. Sustaining the public trust is crucial to social solidarity, to the relation of societies with each other, and to international peace and stability. Nations cohere and flourish on the belief that their institutions can foresee calamity, arrest its impact, and restore stability. When the COVID-19 pandemic is over, many countries' institutions will be perceived as having failed. Whether this judgment is objectively fair is irrelevant. The reality is the world will never be the same after the coronavirus. To argue now about the past only makes it harder to do what has to be done. The coronavirus has struck with unprecedented scale and ferocity. Its spread is exponential. U.S. cases are doubling every 5th day. At this writing, there is no cure. Medical supplies are insufficient to cope with the widening waves of cases. Intensive care units are on the verge, and beyond, of being overwhelmed. Testing is inadequate to the task of identifying the extent of infection, much less reversing its spread. A successful vaccine could be 12 to 18 months away. The U.S. administration has done a solid job in avoiding immediate catastrophe. The ultimate test will be whether the virus's spread can be arrested and then reversed in a manner and at a scale that maintains public confidence in Americans' ability to govern themselves. The crisis effort, however vast and necessary, must not crowd out the urgent task of launching a parallel enterprise for the transition to the post-coronavirus order. Leaders are dealing with the crisis on a largely national basis, but the virus's society-dissolving effects do not recognize borders. While the assault on human health will, hopefully, be temporary, the political and economic upheaval it has unleashed could last for generations. No country, not even the U.S., can, in a purely national effort, overcome the virus. Addressing the necessities of the moment must ultimately be coupled with a global collaborative vision and program. If we cannot do both in tandem, we will face the worst of each. Drawing lessons from the development of the Marshall Plan and the Manhattan Project, the U.S. is obliged to undertake a major effort in 3 domains. First, shore up global resilience to infectious disease. Triumphs of medical science, like the polio vaccine and the eradication of smallpox, or the emerging statistical technical marvel of medical diagnosis through artificial intelligence, have lulled us into a dangerous complacency. We need to develop new techniques and technologies for infection control and commensurate vaccines across large populations. Cities, states, and regions must consistently prepare to protect their people from pandemics through stockpiling, cooperative planning, and exploration at the frontiers of science. Second, strive to heal the wounds to the world economy. Global leaders have learned important lessons from the 2008 financial crisis. The current economic crisis is more complex. The contraction unleashed by the coronavirus is, in its speed and global scale, unlike anything ever known in history. And necessary public health measures, such as social distancing and closing schools and businesses, are contributing to the economic pain. Programs should also seek to ameliorate the effects of impending chaos on the world's most vulnerable populations. Third, safeguard the principles of the liberal world order. The founding legend of modern government is a walled city protected by powerful rulers, sometimes despotic, other times benevolent, yet always strong enough to protect the people from an external enemy. Enlightenment thinkers reframed this concept, arguing that the purpose of the legitimate state is to provide for the fundamental needs of the people: security, order, economic well-being, and justice. Individuals cannot secure these things on their own. The pandemic has prompted an anachronism, a revival of the walled city in an age when prosperity depends on global trade and movement of people. The world's democracies need to defend and sustain their Enlightenment values. A global retreat from balancing power with legitimacy will cause the social contract to disintegrate both domestically and internationally. Yet this millennial issue of legitimacy and power cannot be settled simultaneously with the effort to overcome the COVID-19 plague. Restraint is necessary on all sides, in both domestic politics and international diplomacy. Priorities must be established. We went on from the Battle of the Bulge into a world of growing prosperity and enhanced human dignity. Now we live an epochal period. The historic challenge for leaders is to manage the crisis while building the future. Failure could set the world on fire. All right, everyone. I wanted to get that on record.
Disgusting.
Well, right. I wanted to get that out there because a lot of people might not have seen it since it was in the Wall Street Journal. Here's the thing. He's doing what he always does. A crisis comes up or some sort of situation of any sort comes up, and he's calling for a complete restructuring of the entire world order, as he likes to put it. And, well, he didn't let this one go to waste, did he? Anybody have any comments or anything to make about it?
Yeah, I took the old frickin' cankerous goat to prove he was at the Battle of the Bulge for one. I'm kind of doubtful, but he's a Tavistock creature.
Yeah.
He showed up in many of the things I've done, and it's just amazing to me that such a kind of living vampire is still around after all this time. How old's that goat, man?
He will be 97 next month, yep.
I gotta say, man, isn't it about time for him to quit sucking on virgins and just die or something?
Yeah.
Maybe he's drinking down the adrenochrome, as they like to say.
I don't know, man, but he was ugly back in the day, and what he just said there is enough to make you sick to your stomach. I'd rather face space herpes.
Yeah, or something. Man.
So anyway, that article was published as an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal on April 3rd, so just a few days ago, which is why I thought it was relevant. And of course, he put his usual nonsense in there. And I thought I would remind everybody that this old bag is still kicking around and still being a piece of crap. Anyway.
I would estimate, Jason, the first time we ever heard the old New World Order thing was Bush the Senior, September 11, I think, 91. And it rang such a bell, it was never heard in public from any official guy. He may be one of the first high-ranking government officials from this country to utter those words again. I don't know if that's true, but I haven't heard people trotting out New World Order so openly.
He did it when Obama was first brought in. I remember him saying there's an opportunity for a New World Order or something to that effect in one of his little
John Kerry's brought it out a few times. I mean, when George Bush the senior first said it, I mean, I almost soiled myself because I had only seen it in the context of, the coming New World Order as part of our tinfoil hat club. So when he said it publicly and proudly for the first time, I thought, they're going to, nail it down now, but they, as usual, they're so patient. And they plan for such long periods of times. It's remarkable.
This whole thing going on is almost like pulled right from myth. Well, we kind of showed that it is, but the idea of might versus right, it's the whole Arthurian legend. And this echoes back to Bush's New World Order speech in 91. Because if you recall, his whole nonsensical gibberish was saying, this isn't going to be law of the jungle and all this. No, it's exactly what it is. It is literally
he tried to give it legitimacy. He said, what he said was, rather than law of the jungle, it's going to be rule of law rather than law of the jungle. And what he basically says is, what he basically was saying, if you listen closely, is that our laws are going to replace natural law.
Right.
He didn't ever define what the law of the jungle was. Yep.
So what they're trying to, the whole point here is that what they're saying is the exact reverse of truth, but they're inserting their little place, their artificial place they want to be God of. But you see, you can't justify the outcome with the means you got there, you can't justify the means. So I think in the longer I look at the overreach, there could be some period of time, Lord knows, but how can this possibly be sustainable? It's so far from anything natural or normal. I mean, it's completely so artificial that there's no portion of it that won't need constant maintenance. This is a car that's going to burn through a tank of gas every 5 seconds.
Well, unfortunately, from my perspective, is that those who are considerably, younger than us, Crow. I mean, we're in our, I would guess, our 50s, and we're probably the older ones here. And as we get older, I mean, we certainly see it, and we certainly remember a world that was not at all this way. And yet, those who are probably, under 30 have never known anything, different. They were, young enough when the changeover happened with 2001 that. This is again what they can say. They keep saying it's the new normal, and so what I see is that many people in the world today have never really lived their life as an adult when constant surveillance wasn't a thing. They never knew a time when we weren't fully surveilled. So it is as we get older, we certainly see it more, but we also seem to some degree, from my perspective, lack a little bit of the energy to, when I was young, I was ready to go do something about it. And now I spend more of my time watching and waiting and just considering it. But it is, I find it remarkable that more people, my wife asks me that almost every day, like, how come people aren't, uprising? How come that they're not taking to the streets? There are so many people who are, from my perspective, the hypnosis has worked. It is literally as a form of mass hypnosis, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, but they're claiming that the Washington Mall is going to see its first big protest, which I immediately suspected had a 50% chance of being staged for video. But I can't agree wholly there, because Jason and we went balls to the walls when this happened. I stayed up all night, wrote a blog the first night that went everywhere. So to some degree, you've got to imagine, look at it this way. I don't know any flat earther that's buying this BS, and that's a pretty big community. I'm just saying, the fat lady hasn't sung, and by the way, did you know Nova's putting out a new episode real soon to convince people that it's good to be fat? I just, well,
and again, I'm not saying I'm not doing anything, right? So I mean, I just say that compared to when I was in my mid 20s, when I was very active and willing to, I don't know, take to the streets or whatever, and now I guess maybe a little bit of wisdom now to see that there are probably better ways to do things, but certainly. I try to be active in the community and give information where I can find it, but I don't mean I'm not. I don't mean to imply I'm doing nothing. I'm just saying that in terms of physically getting out there and, like I said, I don't know, taken to the streets or whatever. It seems less. That seems like a less viable solution these days than working with information as we're doing now.
I think that might change by the time you're approaching week 5 of no paycheck and no food, which was part of the engineering of this in the first place, but we'll see.
Absolutely.
I'll be very surprised if we don't see Good Friday, which I think is possible, Saturn Day, which numerically and for other reasons is possible, but my money's still riding on Sunday, which is also Easter, which is also the 159th anniversary of the beginning of the Civil War. But I think we're going to know some things. If they go at Easter, that's one hell of a balls-to-the-wall statement. That is ruining the highest Christian religious holiday into the future history of our world.
So does it seem to you guys that this is sort of centered around a timeliness, again, with the sky clock, Easter / Passover, all these kind of high holy days, all tied into the sky clock? It does seem like they're working off that.
Well, it's provable. Anyone can leave temporarily, go outside, look up over your head right now, and what you will see is, to the far right, you'll see Jupiter. Next to that, you'll see Saturn. Next to that, you'll see Mars. Venus will be over in the western sky for many of us. This is clocked all day. This is clocked all day. All of it's clocked. It's always clocked, because you can't do your spell and your hypnosis to the full alchemical degree if you decide to depart from nature, which is what makes this all the more ironic. So they're using all this natural science, basically alchemy and the sky clock, to pull off their spells and crap, but what they're engaged in doing is trying to replace that very thing with an artificial system. It just, I don't know. I read the book of Revelation, which they're using too. Bad guys lose.
Yeah. I read it. I read it pretty
read that.
frequently. I
The special
I
effects.
get more out of. I get more out of it each time I read it. But,
Yeah, but come on,
I
man!
saw
The special
Game of
effects
Thrones,
are out of this
bad
world.
girl loses. I read the Greek myths. The heroes typically win after they're done suffering.
Well,
By the way, Wayne, you still with us?
Oh yeah, I'm here. My biggest problem with this whole thing is I like to be home. So I mean, it's one of those things. But now that they're telling me I have to be home, I kind of want to go places now. So that's the struggle for me. Given my choice of anywhere to be in this world, it would be home. But now they're telling me I gotta be there. I have the urge to go other places. So I don't know. But that's my struggle with the whole thing. That's just my personal struggle. But yeah, absolutely, the Book of Revelation is very telling. All of these different things are very telling, and when it comes down to it, the good guys win in the end. So, that's the thing. This too shall pass. And that's what I like to remind people, that even though they may succeed at whatever dastardly things they have planned for us in the short term, it's going to come to an end. Because as we've discussed many times before, all created things see their end. So there's not a single thing in our world that's not a created thing. So all these things will see their end. And that's just the nature of the place we live in. So we are not the creator. We are not God. So the things that we can make ourselves will not stand throughout all time immemorial.
Well, if I can find the exit door, I'm ratting these bastards out on the other side.
right. I mean, I know for myself that I have gone over the past probably, I'd say, 18 to 20 months from a sense of almost, shock at how quickly things were turning and changing to a sense of, I would probably say a sort of a sense of, becoming a bit more. Like a greater sense of urgency myself. I guess I would put it that way. At this point, now it's become anger. I'm I guess that's the frustration that I currently feel, is that perhaps I feel a little bit of frustration of wanting to do more and wanting to cause them problems greater than what I'm doing. So it is with a sense of anger that I see them deceiving people and for the most part turning people's good intentions into something bad. And now people's good intentions are being turned into snitching on their neighbors, and they're offering rewards for turning your neighbors in for not social distancing and for violating stay-at-home orders and this sort of thing. And I've had enough. I don't know. I'm at a kind of a point of I'm this close to wanting to cause some mayhem, and I know better, right?
Yeah, that's the whole goal. But wait a minute, man, that's really the whole goal of when you cut people's livelihoods off in their business, is you're fostering an environment where the shit's going to hit the fan, to be blunt about it. But I would point out, if you look at the reports from officialdom, you're not going to be happy about anything ever. But Jason, I'll ask you. I get a crap load of emails in a day, but I can't tell you over the past 3 days how many emails I've got from people talking about our episodes way back into the 2 digits, saying, I listened to this episode back then and I wasn't sure it all fits. You were telling us where this was headed. Have you gotten those emails? I mean, I don't know, I must have 15, 20 of people mentioning the old stuff that they considered but didn't really accept. And now they're saying it was, pointing to where we are.
Yeah. Well, a couple things I've been experiencing. By the way, Learning to Fly, thank you for the $2 again. Silent super chat. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. What I've been seeing is some people have been mentioning older episodes, definitely, but I've just had a great increase in listener reach out in general, and I really try to address everyone amidst all the other things that we've been doing, and obviously we've increased our output significantly, and then we've both actually been trying to go on more shows in general too, so that eats up time because obviously I can't be researching and writing while I'm on the air. So I've been going nonstop just to try and get good stuff out as much as possible to everyone, but I do try. If you've tried to reach me, hopefully I've at least acknowledged in some way, shape, or form, and try to give a reasonably good answer to any questions that may come up. So it's appreciated. I mean, it's nice to hear from people that they're liking what we're doing.
Well, the part of what went on the early kind of internet is there was a whole bunch of solid, upright people who did not appreciate what they considered conspiracy. And what I'm seeing is a lot of people realizing that they talked a little too quickly, that a lot of the things they were poo-pooing, say, are unreal, pale in comparison to what they're saying. I'm just saying, there's a lot of people in this world, and we have no ability to know how many because we don't control information sources, and the censorship is alive and well. I think there's real possibilities that this will go so sideways compared to things. And I don't know if they go for the iron grip or what happens here. But regardless, there's going to be a crap load of people who are no longer on the fence as a result of the overreach to get where they're going here.
It seems to be so. I mean, even at my unintended consequences email, which was set up specifically to do this, Age of Awakening study, I get questions nearly every day, from 3 or 4 people, kind of the same as you do, like asking advice and stuff. And I'm like, hey, I kind of go, I don't know how to tell you how to live your life. I mean, these are, I can tell you what I might do under similar circumstances, but people are, more and more, I think, even I see even some of my normie friends are asking me, they go, hey, you're the conspiracy guy. What do you think? And, I've been telling you for a number of years what I think. Why ask now? Right. So there does seem to be I think I would say a little bit greater awareness now that something is certainly off kilter. And that they can't take everything at face value. Although that's not true for everybody. I mean, it does seem, as I watch again, a greater sense of polarization. Those who are bought in or continue to be even more deeply bought in, and they try even more strongly to shout down those of us who are saying, ask questions, challenge this, be skeptical. There are those who just don't want to hear that, and so. It does seem like, one of the things I've watched over the past few years is it seems like, they're kind of instigating from the darkness and from the shadows and trying to, create this polarized sense of, trying to create battles between us rather than, us turning on them to get us to turn against each other. And it seems like they're trying to ramp that up now, and I would be sad to see that happen, that people turn against each other rather than turning on those who are really, turning the knobs and pulling the levers, certainly.
Thank you.
That's all part of the... Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
I just wanted to say thank you for the couple more super chats that just came in. Learning to Fly for another $2. Thank you, says Silent Mayhem Chat. But looks like somebody heard that. And Matthew Ross, thank you for the New Zealand $8.99. The episode of the Mercury myth hit me hard in a good way. I see 88s everywhere. And as a matter of fact, Marty McFly, you will see 88s everywhere. Rocker Chick, thank you for the $14.99. Thanks for doing these shows. We appreciate all of you. Over to you, Wayne. And thank you, by the way.
I was just going to say that, just backing up what Baldini's talking about, that's all part of the Hegelian control mechanism that they put in place. They'd rather us out there fighting amongst ourselves rather than actually centering our attention where it belongs, on the source of the problems. And it even goes to the same thing with this whole 5G tower bit. You going out there and setting fire to 5G towers, who's that going to spite? I mean, it might short-term knock out part of the problem, but it's not something that's going to yield any long-term meaningful results, and that's exactly the problem. It's just unwise to do something like that, simply because it's not going to solve the problem. It's not going to get to the heart of it. It may actually cure the symptom of it in much the same way our pharmaceutical companies are all designed. It's, treat the symptom, but don't really address the problem. We need to address the problem, and the problem are the directors of the boards of these telecom companies and stuff like that are actually rolling this stuff out without any adequate safety studies, and that's a part of the problem.
Well, I think one of the the biggest things we can do is, again, what everybody here on this panel has done is do our best to raise awareness. That's probably the biggest thing that we can do at this point, is to just raise awareness and get people to ask questions and be skeptical of everything that we're told, even the things that that we say and offer. Be skeptical of that, because I don't mind if people question what I say, because at least they're going to go do some research, right? At least that'll get them involved in the process, and that's I encourage that. I think if anybody that spends the time really going after the source of information, if you really want to get after the truth and find what the truth is, and don't just stop at the gatekeepers of Wikipedia and Snopes and that sort of that sort of thing. If you really spend the time and legitimately look for information and follow the truth wherever it goes, I highly encourage that. I think that you're gonna find some very surprising things.
There's when you look at a problem like we're facing, you have to come to some realizations. You're not going to probably create anything organized to deal with. You need something that's already in place. And even as I began to realize, I said to myself, "Self, this doesn't sound like you." But the more I looked at it, I realized the Constitution is there, and if that was fought for in a meaningful way and demanded back in place by a lot of people everywhere, sick and tired of the kind of corporatocracy. Even things like, look at what the pharmaceuticals and the government did when they started damaging people with vaccines. They created a frickin' vaccine court. That's a violation of the Constitution. And the more I looked at the ideas, like everyone knows they're going for the guns. That's a violation. They can't. That's a violation of your constitutional right. But the problem becomes is if we let this lawn get mowed very short and it stays that way, there's going to be the idea of eminent domain. It's going to be the idea that this easement was not open to them. They forced their way down the easement and no one built a fence to stop them from using the easement. And that comes in the future. But the point is, we have the means, we have the mechanism. There are actually people in different states that were already pushing to get back to some form of constitutionality. The thing about it, whether you think we ever had it, whether you think it exists. And if it was demanded back in force, it would dissolve so many things all at once.
I think, Crow, it exists on paper, but man, from my view and from my study, it gives just a patina of legitimacy. Because if you consider now, the Constitution-free zone, right, is in effect at a federal level, and that's 150 to 200 miles from any port, and that includes airport. So try to go any place that's 200 miles away from any airport. It's less than 4% of the entire United States.
You're making the point, though. So they had to recognize that the Constitution was a problem first off. Then they had to violate it to get their zone. This is exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, again, it's on paper. I think it's
not just on paper. They had to actually do work to make the supposed free zone to get it away from them because it was a perceived problem. And I'm with you. It's not the magic leprechaun that cures all, but what it is ready-made. And what it is a thing that they deigned to tell us all we grew up with, that it applied.
Well, what I think its value is to tell us what we have a right to, right, and at least what the goal is. I think in a practical sense, because of the federal nature of the government, and especially the Act of 1871 and immediately following the Civil War, where we became a corporation, I think that, for all intents and purposes, in all practical sense, they hold the power. But if you want to, I think it's great. Its value at this point is if people understood what its meaning is and what it is supposed to grant us in terms of freedoms and rights, and that we demanded that. That would be something. I just think in a practical sense, those who are pulling the strings and those who call the shots have control of the police force and the military, and those guys are just going to do what they're told, right? They're going to follow orders because that's their job.
So, I see the point you're making. Then why did they go through the effort to make a constitutional free zone, which was clearly unconstitutional?
All right.
Why didn't they just ignore it? And why didn't they just ignore it and say, we have the cops? We have.
Well, they do.
But it doesn't work both ways. You see, if it's a thing that no longer matters and has no validity, then everyone ignores it. And that's not what's going on here. There were guys down in the Carolinas who were pushing to get their state. They had it to the Supreme Court. They kept getting pushed off. They finally got recognized in their writ or whatever it was just days before all this COVID nonsense came to town. You can almost see that the court staved it off, lost documents, did all these things until they knew this was coming. But my point is what's the option? What's the option? If you're not going to go back to this thing that was held up as the be-all and end-all, that does not respect corporations, that insists that living men and women are what we're talking about, that insists on a lot of things, whatever shortfalls you might find, what is the option?
Well,
Let's see. Are we going to get online and organize a large group of people to go walk down streets? Are we going to do something with cell tower? I mean, really,
I don't think it's going to help. I mean, if you really want to go down this path, I mean, I've had these conversations before. I think there are really. There's really two paths you can take here, right? And one is what can you practically do, and what can you reasonably do? I mean, and those aren't different things. But I mean, if from my perspective, Crow, is like, as I look closely at this, I mean, again, and I retain the right to be wrong completely, right? And I appreciate that we have maybe different views on this. But as I look at it, again, I've said this over and over, that the system isn't broken, it's fixed, right? In other words, the system is working exactly the way it's intended to do. And from my perspective, it always has been to provide a patina of legitimacy to it. And the reason that it's there, the reason we have a Constitution is to tell you you have these rights, but when it comes down to it, the catch-22 is legally you really don't. And they're going to do whatever they want to do.
But wait a minute, that's not true. What happened is you got strong-armed, and we can point to dates like 33 and other things where the wool was pulled. Now, we could say things like those people in 33 should have stood up. But for whatever reason they did, and we inherited it. The point is whether you want to claim there's a statute of limitations on a murder, that could be problematic. But if you go back and say, we know where you hoodwinked us, we know how you did it, and we demand better than this because nobody's happy, that's a path. And it's a path that doesn't have to be rethought because someone else already thought it. And it's a path that doesn't appreciate corporation. It's a path that does many, many things. If I was going to make the argument against it, I would probably go at it like this. If the Constitution was ever demanded by tons and tons of people and being considered, the first problems I could see is that every country's a corporation now. In the Constitution, only a country can do treaties with countries. So there would be problems. But the point is, if you look at the main underlying what did all this, it's one word, and everybody knows it: corporation. There it is.
Well, but then from again, in a legal sense, and if we're going to be the nation of laws that we say we are, in a legal sense, we are a corporation. In fact, the United States of America is a corporate entity, and they're going to have the precedent. So from my perspective, and again, we can. It's okay if we have different perspectives on this. My take isn't to argue about it, but just to express the opinion that, from what I see, that the people who are holding the power do, and that they provide, again, a patina of legitimacy to make people believe that they have rights that they don't really have.
True.
And that the system, again, from my perspective, isn't broken. It's working. It's fixed. It's working exactly the way it was intended to, which is to provide a basically free-range prison, right? And so that people don't realize that they're in prison until they try to push up against the barriers really hard. And then for the most part, it could kind of get swept under the rug.
So where's the file? Where's the file? I mean, we agree.
If you really want to, change things, I think the only way that's going to happen, and again, this is where I'm going to get in trouble, is the only way through it is revolution, which requires bloodshed, and that is not something I would advocate because we're on the wrong end of that. So this is where I go. The difference between the practical point of view and the realistic point of view is that what you're going to have to do is look inside yourself and make those decisions for yourself, and to see where your threshold is to say no, because sooner or later, and my take is it's sooner than later, you're going to be told to do something which, for me, I'm going to say no, right? Whether that is forced vaccination, whether that is you can't go to the store and get food, whether that is you can't go make a living for your family, whatever that is, I'm going to say no, and I'm I'm really close to right there right now to go no. And so, when I go down to Trader Joe's and they go, oh, we're only allowing, 3 or 4 people in the store at the same time. I'm like, hard pass. I'll go somewhere else. Right. I'm not playing this game with you. Right.
Well,
and so
the whole thing seems like it's a big test. After all, they've been ramping things up. I think everything is being tested right now. Like the things you guys are going back and forth about, it's hard to say where exactly our rights really are, just because of the state that we're in right now. But no matter what they're doing right now is testing to see how far they can push it. But
that's the proof, though, Jason. We're saying, where are our rights? What are our rights? They're testing to see how far, and that automatically tells you what a right is. It's what you
nobody in charge gives a flip about our rights. Let's be honest here. Not at this point.
And they're going to do they're really going to do what they want.
If that was true, then they wouldn't have eased in or set up or done all these other things to try
I think they want a soft glove tyranny as opposed to a hitch over the head tyranny. That's what I've always thought. It's easier this way.
That's the Huxley way, right? Versus the Orwell way. And the Orwell way was the 1984 boot on the neck, and that's why Huxley wrote him a letter saying, I think my way's better, which is to get people to love their tyranny. And for the most part, what I see in America anyway is that people do. They love their things, and they're willing to give up a good deal of actual freedom to have their soft life. And then they're willing to say yes to a lot of things. And the more I look, the more I don't really believe that we have the freedoms that we were guaranteed. We never did. I don't think my grandparents did.
We never. There were people in this country at one point who did.
I think they let them have it. I think they let them have it, Crow. I think, again, if they really tried to express it and it caused any kind of hassle to the powers that be, they would shut them down, and there are evidences of that. I think that most people, ultimately it takes the vox populus, right? It takes the voice of the people, a lot of people, to say no at the same time, and that's where things change. And it just seems right now, from my perspective, and again, I don't want to be the turd in the punch bowl here, but it just seems less likely. There are a lot of people thinking it, but until a few people really do stand up and say no, and it's gonna take a few people. I don't know. I don't think that we've ever, in my lifetime or in the lifetime of my grandparents even, that we have ever had the freedoms that we were promised.
We had a lot more pre-33, but I'll ask a simple question.
I think earlier in our lives, Kuro, that you and I had certain freedoms.
The illusion,
but it was illusory because we didn't test it, right? There was no test, there was no boundary
need,
there.
right?
Exactly. And now that the boundaries are closing in, and if we want to try to test it, they're closing that noose, and we're realizing we never really did have those freedoms that we were promised.
Well, let's be realistic here. They did the stuff they needed to behind the scenes, though. Let's be totally realistic about all of this. They didn't have to worry about us yet. They kept us with our $1 hamburgers and our $2 gas while they put in the institutions behind the scenes. Federal Reserve being a great example, taking us off the gold standard, like all of these things that we have spoken about in countless episodes. They did everything behind the scenes, and unfortunately, this might be the next move in the big chess game. Let's be honest about that. But I don't want this to turn into a big argument either.
I'll drop it, but I'm just saying everything was hoodwinked. And my last point is information is driving this. If you could snap your fingers and show people one option and another, I think we all know which way they'd go. But unfortunately, they're going to see the option they're going to see, and that proves the forced nature of it. But anyhow, I'll drop it. I know.
We have questions from the chat room I'd really like to bring up, and we have a $20 super chat that's been waiting. I want to get these out there because I feel like this is just going back and forth, and it's just not getting us anywhere. I think we've all made our points. So Jeff, for $20, thank you so very much. There has been talk about removing people from their houses. Do you feel like they are able to pull you out and vax or chip you without consent, or will that bring them too much karma? Now we got something to debate about. Who wants to take that first?
I think, honestly, I'll take that first. I think, honestly, that's going to be too much karma for them because even just as the points that Baldini and Crow were going back and forth with here, when you look at it, first things first, we as a people, all of us all together need to acknowledge where it is that our rights come from. They come from God. That was outlined in our Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator, not man, their creator, with certain unalienable rights. Our rights are unalienable. It's just up to us to stand up and claim them as such, because that's the thing. They have no power over you if you stand up and claim that. So that's one thing where we need to be clear. And secondly, I would say, as far as this going and actually removing people from their homes and forcibly vaccinating them, they're going to run into a really hard time in this country with a lot of people, simply because we still have more firearms per capita than any other place in the world.
Yeah.
So with that being said,
I think my pitch in on that is that could they? No, they could, but I think what they far prefer is to convince you to ask for it, to want it, right? To get you so afraid of the consequences of not doing it that you beg them for it. And there will be a few like us who say, no, we're not going to do it. And then they might try to forcibly do it. But they want the tipping point of the 80-20 rule, where they want the majority to want it.
Right.
So,
and I think they'll try to tie it all to economic factors too. Like if you don't take this vaccine and get this ID,
then you can't get a driver's
chip,
license, you can't get a job, right? You won't be able to.
This quote unquote certificate of vaccination, then you won't be able to go to your job, or you won't be allowed out in public. You won't be able to spend any money, that kind of thing. They're going to attempt to subvert it in different ways like that. So I could see that being a thing. But as far as them actually physically going door to door, forcibly removing you from your home and trying to vaccinate you that way, that's not going to end well. And I think they realize.
Yeah, I think at this point it's a bridge too far. But again, I think if you get the majority to desire it and to want it and sign up for it, then the last few holdouts, then they can say that it's mandatory and you must do it, or you can't have these benefits, or again you can't join in society if you don't choose to play along, and whether that's a vaccination, whether that's financial, and that's the way we mentioned the Book of Revelation previously. That's what it measures out, right? Is that there's something that's an economics bridge there, a watershed, a gate there, that if you don't accept this role, if you don't do what they say, you can't buy or sell. So that's ultimately I agree with you, Wayne. It's an economic thing, but I think before they start dragging people out of their houses and forcing it on them, they would want the vast majority to desire it and to think that it's a beneficial thing. And again, whether that's in e-currency or a vaccination thing, they're going to want people to desire it and to find it beneficial. And then the last few holdouts then will be made pariah and ostracized to the point where everybody says you're holding things up, and then do with them what you have to because they're holding us up.
And I'll be wearing my tinfoil hat the whole time that I'm saying, no.
There's, as Wayne opened up there, he pointed out a critically important thing. The idea of where do the rights of a human being derive? Does a human being have the divine spark? If the answer to that is yes, then there's a higher court, provably, because these people or any other people or any group of people that will ever be cannot make a human being from scratch, nor a duck, nor a fish, nor a tree. There's your proof. So there's a higher court here. So the point I'm making is what Baldini's saying is absolutely what they will try. They're doing it right now. Oh, you're not getting a paycheck. You hungry yet? You want to opt into these things so you can quit being hungry? It's underhanded and it's indefensible the way they've gone at it. But the point is if we lose track that we do have the divine spark, that there is a higher path than the Supreme Court or any other damn court someone wants to invent, then yeah, we're going to go the way we go. But if we don't forget these things and we look back to times that we're reasonably sure happened, in my family tree, which isn't even that long, there were times when higher ideals were based and agreed on. They got lost pretty quick. I think the last vestige of any matter was right around 33 and the whole central banking. But if we wake up tomorrow, or say Tuesday, so we can see what happens on Easter and the day after. If we wake up Tuesday morning and the insurance premium for your car comes and it no longer says, here's the offer, yeah, we're in a different world then. They've thrown out the window this thing they've tippy-toed around, they've connived, they've fooled, they've coerced, they've done all these things because they have to. They would never say, here's the offer, unless there was some reason they had to. It would just damn well say, there's a law in your state, buy your damn insurance and be done with it. And they did that for years until people caught on. Now it comes, it says, here's the offer. So the truth of it is even if they do come kick down your door, that's an offer. You don't have to take it.
Right.
It doesn't guarantee that the jackass there won't try to force you or do the wrong thing. But the point is if you lose track of the fact that you do not have to take it or accept it, then we're probably on a slippery slope down.
Well, and this is Crow, to your point, exactly what I was saying about the difference between the practical and the pragmatic, I suppose, is that you need to decide for yourself, and that's, the only way to do this is you got to decide for yourself what that threshold level is, right? At which point you're going to say no, and everybody's got to decide that for themselves. If we can get a large enough group of people to do it all at once, so much the better, right? Then we have, I think, more power. But ultimately, for yourself, you need to decide, and I think quickly, what that threshold is, and when you're going to say no. Because most people, according to history, from what I've seen, most people wait too long, and they regret that they did not say no earlier in the process until it becomes too late, right? Or they feel that it's too late, and they lack the power to corporately stand up and do something about it. When I say corporately, I mean as a group, not as a corporation, right?
Let's be honest about something else here, though. I think that they've been very patient, decades minimally. I think it's been a lot longer than that, though. But let's just cut it down to the minimum. They've been patient for at least decades, the past century. I think we could all agree on that, right?
Okay. Yep.
So with the situation they've got now, to get it back to the person's original question, they only have to wait this out a few weeks. A lot of people live paycheck to paycheck, month to month, or at most have, 2-3 months in the bank where they can pay their bills with at most. A lot of folks do not have tons of money sitting around. I don't think they're going to need to be violent about anything or forceful.
I agree.
I think it's going to come to that because already they extended it here where I'm from and I think everywhere else. From 2 weeks, we're going to do this self-administered quarantine, bumped it up to April 30th, and I'm waiting for them to change it again because the numbers keep going up, not down. So what's going to happen to people who just don't have enough in another month or so?
Look what happened with that too, though, Jason. Like a lot of people weren't doing the quarantine, so they started making up, well, we can ticket you. Well, no, really, you can't. Do you want to be?
I think. Do you want to be the guy if they wanted to?
Yeah. Do you want to be the guy there when that goes to court? I mean, a person with two synapses to rub together is going to make a mockery out of that. But this is really the point. They've done an underhanded thing here to cause the problem. They've told a lie. Yep. So what always gets me is if 80% of the people believe the lie, is that the reality they're going for? What happens when 40 or 50% know the lie was told? At what point does that knowledge of the lie become a problem? And I think that is a huge part of this.
It is from my research. It is when you get above 30%, it does become a major problem.
The old 80-20.
Yeah, it's the 80-20 rule. And so if you get above 30% who are in dissension, you can't keep it quiet anymore, and it does start to really infect. It really infect the others. So but
it seems like something higher too, though. It's almost like it's real. If enough people believe in it, then on some fake make-believe level, this is actuality. You know, like the mind is driving this place, and that's a big part of it.
Yeah, there's absolutely truth in that. From my perspective, is that however you want to put it, the mind precedes all, or as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. There's a whole ton of different ways to put it, but the manifestation of the will, whatever you believe, if you believe it enough, right? If you have faith of a mustard seed, however you want to put that, there is. From my perspective, that's an actual thing. And so the larger a group believes a certain thing, it does manifest itself, at least to them, in a certain way. And it does make manifest that thing. So there is certainly some validity to that.
I'm going to pour oxygen into the room for people who feel like there's no hope. Before this was all going down a few weeks ago, Jason and I, do you remember the conversation about how many flat earthers are there in the world, Jason? Someone had stats on a concert or something for Flat Earth that was going to go on in South America, and they deduced
it was Brazil. They have millions.
11 million or something?
Yeah, it was 11 or 12 million.
Do you suppose there's a single Flat Earther in this world that's not aware of the lie? Once you become aware of a lie at the level that community is engaged with, you start to test things. So my point here is, I think there's a hell of a lot people, more than we've been able to deduce, that are not buying the lie. Now that creates a possible two problems. The reality of, if not enough people believe the lie, the fake reality that you're leaning on goes away. But it also creates a situation that you guys were alluding to. Is the force we're going to see stagecrafted force, or does it become something else? And that's why I put out the clip about Sunday, because I think minimally there has to be a stagecrafted idea of violence in some way, whether it's force or just people dying in beds or whatever video could show you. But I mean, what do you guys think? And that's a big community everywhere. So to the point where Google was actively shutting down those accounts to try to minimize that community from growing.
Well, one of the things I see is there's a heck of a lot of us who aren't buying it, but we do seem to be fairly spread out. I hear this a lot from people, is that they feel somewhat removed and separated from others, other than somewhat the online community. One of the things that has given me some hope of late is that the possibility that this forced sequestration of people at home, one of the key indicators of people waking up in my study has been that they had time to look, right? That it required a certain amount of time, an investment of time, and the ability to sort of cogitate on things for a while, and to sort of really look at things and some introspection to put things together. This may offer an opportunity. It may be some unintended consequences on the side of the PIC, that by giving people the time to think about it, it may blow back on them some, and get people to actually become skeptical and ask questions, because that is one of the key elements in my study, has been that people have the time to really do some research. And so if people do take some time to look, instead of just watching the news and consuming fear porn, it may be an opportunity.
I can tell you right now that they're concerned about the flat earth thing, because what is the slogan that they chose to get all the politicians rah-rah-rahing around? Flatten the curve.
Flatten the curve.
Right. So what is being buried?
It's a poke in the eye.
So anything you look up.
But anyway,
a poke in the third eye.
Gentlemen, I would suggest, based upon all that information that we just laid on the table there, that we have a path forward now with this. What we need to do is break that 80-20 rule. We need to, push this information out as far and wide as people will receive it, and get above that 30 percentile mark. Because if that's the case, this would disrupt the whole idea, the whole planning behind this.
Well, that's the whole
that is what we're trying
my
to do.
study to begin with.
Yeah, we held up our end. Jason and I have been in a dead run since the night it broke.
Yeah, I was on 6 shows this week
since the first of the year with the study. So I mean, I think we're all in our own way trying to do that, right? Like that was the whole purpose of my study, was to try to figure it out.
This is the point, though. Everybody listening, we all need to do this. We all need to get this information out to people. That's the important thing. It's just a couple of guys on the radio like us are not going to be able to spread the word. It's people just putting little things out there in the ether for the normies to latch onto.
Right, and in a way,
now,
we've got it easy, because we're sort of preaching to the choir a little bit, right? In that, the people who come here to listen are already sort of predisposed to this information, and it is sort of the kind of the onus on the people out there is to try to bring this information to those around you who don't want to hear it, and so that's kind of what I'm working on again, is means and methodologies to reverse this brainwashing situation, right, and to look really closely at what they've done to put us under this hypnosis and try to find a way to break the spell, right? So that's what I'm kind of working on specifically, is how to do that. But it does bring the kind of the onus on everybody to try to plant the seed with your neighbors.
Well, I'd be willing to bet that if you think of what the average person has to go through in Western life, you wake up, you're exhausted, you got to deal with the kids, the dog, you got to get out the door to work, you go do a third of your life, you come home, you got to get the kids fed, you got to shop, you got to get gas in the car, you got to go to DMV, then you get the other third of your life and you go sleep. And so the information that you get, you're not going to worked too hard to get it. You're exhausted. You're run down because the system is designed that way. So you flick on the TV. But even something as simple as showing someone the number of central banks owned by the Rothschilds. I think if things like that were common knowledge at this point where they won't be viewed as somehow conspiratorial, I think that the tide would turn. But the more I think about the flat earth community and the size of it that we were starting to try to wrap our heads around, I think there's a hell of a lot more people out there than we think that are not buying this nonsense. And if that's correct, then the next shoe that drops has to be a big one, and it seems like that would need to be towards iron-fisted control. Because how else do you get a lasso around that calf, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, agreed. And again, that's one, kind of that I have been working on, right, is these what I call low emotional impact and large proximity things, right? So things that I was looking at like Gulf of Tonkin and Operation Northwoods and these sorts of things that are large enough proximity away from people currently that it doesn't impact their lives. Because if you try to bring up this current situation, right, they're emotionally invested in it. So trying to bring out things that are publicly acknowledged, they're not conspiratorial by nature, other than by those who tried to perpetuate them, for example, Operation Northwoods, or the Federal Reserve, right? Like things like that are sort of low emotional impact that can wake people up a little bit. They do seem to kind of need to be brought in by bits and pieces. It does take a little bit of seed planting and allow it to grow, but this is exactly what I'm trying to work on with this deprogramming script, right? Is to find these specific things that can be used in a way to get people to take a look at it and to begin to develop the idea that they have been deceived.
So I don't know if you actually want to get to the notes that we have here on hypnotic trance of scientism and propaganda, but we've been going over an hour, and I'm cool with just finishing out this discussion about the way things were going and save that for next week. Because really, what we're talking about is mesmerism and mass hypnosis, because no matter what's the truth of what's going on behind the scenes here, that's what's being done to the general public. I mean, the more I go out, the more I see people with gloves and masks and all that sort of thing, and I'm just looking at them all like, you're out of your freaking mind, man. This is fantasy. Right?
I went to the store today, and just like it went from maybe 1 in 20 wearing masks about 2 weeks ago to now maybe 60-70% at least are wearing masks. I mean, that's probably 70-80% at least here in Seattle area when I went to the store today, and I was just shaking my head, and there was a guy behind me in line, and he's just going, "This is madness!" Like. Yeah, I mean, and he was he just kind of quickly filled me in. He was a Vietnam, veteran, and he's saying, these people would have never survived. And I'm, like, yeah, everybody's just terrified over, I mean, nothing, right? And every time I go out, one of the things I make it a point is I smile and talk to people, and some people want to run away, right? They're terrified that you would actually interact with them, and
what have they been doing to everybody, Baldini, for the past, I don't even know how many years now? They've been turning everybody into a bunch of sissies and pussies. Yeah. Especially the younger folks. They're really getting it. The older folks, they've kind of got them lulled into sleep because they've had it good for decades, and the younger folks, they're turning them into a bunch of little sissies. So this isn't that hard to push people over the edge. I mean, I've seen young people look like they are absolutely terrified of everything that's going around them, people half my age. And here I am strutting around going like, I don't give a flip about any of this. This is ridiculous.
I mean, that's sort of the attitude that I've had when I'm out now, is that I kind of joked I was last week or the week before that I was sort of ahead of the curve on social distancing, right? And I was like, I kind of like Wayne said, I like being at home, but also I agree with Wayne, is that this has sort of made me want to be more out and in public, because it's reversing what they want everybody to be, right? So now I'm much more likely to try to interact with people, and I smile at them and engage with them and start talking to them, because again, I'm letting them know I'm not afraid, and I'm not going to be cowed by this nonsense, and I'm encouraged by the people who it was really a clear dividing line to me, that the people who don't believe it, don't believe it, and they're willing to say so. And those who do believe it are terrified. I mean, they're terrified, and it makes me feel really bad for them. I have a real sense of compassion for them, and at the same time, it's I don't know. It's really sad to me, right? That so many people can be so drawn in by such nonsense and just observable nonsense, right? And when you try to show them the truth, that they get angry. And this is why, again, I know that it's a hypnotic mind control, because those types of pushback are artificial, right? That they're emotionally invested in a way that they should not be when somebody tries to tell them that they've been fooled.
Right.
Right. And here's my point with all of this. Any world that makes Howie Mandel look like a rational person is not a place I want to be. Think about
But wait, I haven't washed my hands yet.
Oh man, nice one, Wayne.
I didn't get it. Is that a washing hands joke?
Howie Mandel is very OCD about. Well, he's gotten better, I know, than when he was younger, but he was very well known for being absolutely insanely OCD about not shaking hands, not being near people, total germaphobe kind of thing.
I see.
Yeah, so I mean, any society that makes that look like a rational person, man, I don't know. I don't want any part of that. It's a little ridiculous, because even if you look at this, even if you do accept the mainstream narrative of this, wearing gloves out in public and wearing this silly mask out in public, and most of the masks, I know here in Pennsylvania, they just made the announcement they would like you to voluntarily wear a mask when you go out in public, but yet there's not enough masks to go around. So make a homemade
Make your own.
mask.
Put a piece
of this is what they're recommending.
Put underwear on your face.
So put a handkerchief on your face. This
Bit
does not
ironic.
protect-
Hoodies were against the law not too long ago. Remember,
Right.
You can't cover up your head. It's irony.
It is.
Don't go into a bank with sunglasses on.
Right?
Yeah,
or a
it's-
mask, and now you're
Or a
supposed to be
presidential
wearing
mask.
a mask
just-
everywhere.
But this
I
is
guess
proof-
the only upshot is it foils facial recognition. Yeah, I don't
Probably
That's
making
true.
it better because now they look at your shoulder blades or something.
know. Yeah, exactly. And your walking pattern. So that's a new
Yeah.
test. But I want to know when we voted. When did we elect Bill Gates of hell to be the Surgeon
Right?
General of the world?
The minute we logged on to Windows 1,
Right.
and
Windows
here's-
3.11. Yeah.
here's
Yeah,
the
Bill
thing.
Gates
Here's
seems
a
to be out there
surefire
just
tell.
dancing around with a baton going, listen to me, listen to me. It's like, no, dude, we know who you are. A lot of people know who you are. Besides, you couldn't get viruses off of your damn program. What makes you think we can trust you to do anything else?
So here's the thing. Since I dragged everyone off topic, for which I apologize. So how is the spell cast? Is that on the topic here, Jason? If we were
Oh, I think we gave up on the topic. I hope nobody's upset about that, but let's just run with it.
So think about it. What are some ways that, because it is artificial. When someone is that emotionally invested, part of it's I can't admit to myself to be wrong. It's like from that movie Revolver. The rules that they give you in that movie Revolver, though I don't appreciate the violence, they're spot on. And they're a tell if you look at them carefully. And one of those things is no one can admit to themselves that they're stupid, basically. And so what Baldini said, I think, is provably true. But how does that spell? What are the actual nuts and bolts of casting that spell?
Well, that's what I've been working to uncover, girl. That exact thing, right? And that's it's a wild combination. There is the roots of mesmerism and hypnosis in it, as well as this full spectrum mind control, subliminal messaging, as well as spell casting. Right? It's a full gamut, and again, I'm doing my best at this point just to try to get the nuts and bolts of the basic psychology of it. But one of the things that does become demonstrably clear to me is that this pushback, right? That this instant cognitive dissonance, and one of the first times I saw it was when I asked somebody to help me figure out the rules of refraction to try to figure out why we could see too far, and he's like, "You mean flat Earth?" and his like. Literally, he almost had an aneurysm, and I'm like, "What the hell is that?" And then I started seeing it more and more, and then not just from that topic, but a variety of topics. If you even approach that subject, they get furious. And again, that is again, that is to me a very telling thing that there is a landmine put there, and that's artificially placed. So that certainly makes it an interesting thing. I mean, again, that's very telling to me that it is an artificially placed thing. That this is mind control. It's programming.
Mike Alien, thank you for the $5. I like what this says. The mask is like a symbolic experience to tell people to shut up. I like that.
No, that's true.
I got one thing I can offer.
Did
everyone notice as we came into this the number of systems that were changed or severely updated? One of them, which affects Lord knows how many people in this country, was Cox's demand that you upgrade to their Contour box system or you lose service. And the way they did it was, on this date, you're going to lose 50 channels. On this date, you're going to lose 150 channels. I think part of the spell that's being cast is by the frequency which the message is being delivered, and I think Cox has played a key role with its Contour system. That's one of the things I suspect to be correct. I hear crickets.
Carry it, someone. Where are we going with this?
Nowhere, apparently.
I'm not quite sure what you were talking about that Contour system.
It's a box. So everybody has a Cox box that has to use Cox to get television.
Oh, so you're talking about like it's a cable company and where you're at.
It's the biggest cable company in the country, as far as I know.
Well, actually, we're on Verizon Comcast out here, so it's
some of them are subsidiaries under Cox, but a crap load of people are into Cox, and they forced the change to physically come in.
Wayne started laughing.
Oh,
he just went.
All right, man. I'm dropping it.
Sorry, man.
All right, so we're juvenile. We deserve a little bit of a break here.
Sophomoric humor.
Hey, Wayne, the Contour box is hypnotizing you. Quit laughing at me. You're fat. You're stinky. No.
And gay, apparently.
Oh, you called me out, man. I don't know.
All right, since I was busy letting a cat in and out and nobody picked up the ball there for me, let's talk about the census, because I saw several folks throw that one out in the chat here. The census, if nothing else, is just more data to feed the AI, and more data for them is more bad for us.
Plus the monetary system that's coming on the tail of this, everyone's going to enter into contracts that has to take the money. They forced a situation where many people won't have a choice. That's going to start a new system, and every person who does it is going to be in the new database. The goal is to get everyone in the database, so I think what Jason's pointing at is a big damn deal, because the census is just another version of that. The census is such a big deal, it's even biblical, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
That's right,
yeah,
Pluto.
That's true.
Somebody knows my kitty's name.
And at any rate, right now it's a perfect time for them to do the census because everybody's at home. So, if people are being non-compliant, they're there. So they could send their little census person out to count them and sign them up. So,
well, let me throw this out there, just a curveball at you guys. I want to get your take, Crow and Jason and Wayne, on the number of high situated CEOs and corporate executives who have stepped down from their positions in the last 6 weeks. So
219 was the count I found. That's quite a lot.
That's better than a statistical outlier. So I want to get you guys' thoughts on that. Certainly, we can say that this is anomalous at best, a statistically significant situation. And so what do you guys think is going on there?
Never before seen insider information. And before I answer the rest of that, I will point out that the word contour, if switched around, comes out to cornito, which is a cuckold or a man who wears horns. So you guys can laugh at my contour all you want.
Okay, so Cox. Man, that's going really deep there.
Boy. Mercy.
It kind of leaves me a little flaccid.
You're not impressed? A man who wears the contour box is also a man who wears horns? I can't do better than that. All right.
I'm going to walk with a limp.
Jason's going to quit asking me to come on.
Jeff, thank you for the $10.
That's
He
okay. You
says,
gave us a
thanks
good
for the
chuckle."
discussion on my question. I really appreciate the extra work you've been doing. I also have been trying to engage and drop nuggets of truth around me. And you know what, Jeff? That's just it. Because I wish this little meter I have up here that says concurrent viewers currently 459. I wish that said 459,000, but it doesn't, and it probably never will. So everybody, if we're giving you good info, try your damnedest to just spread it around you. That's the best we can do, and it's the most we can ask. Not everybody's good at doing this kind of thing of what we're doing, and who knows if we're even good at it. We just kind of give it our best shot. But if everyone just tries their best with those around them, hopefully we'll beat that 80-20 rule.
That's our
goal.
plan.
Yeah, that's our evil plan to take over the world. Is to get, if we can get to at least
laughter.
If we can get to at least 25%, right? We can mess up the curve. If we could get to 30%, that's a statistically significant situation, and it really does throw a wrench in the works. So back to these corporate executives that are stepping down. 219 was the last count you had, Jason. I think I was at 183 like 2 or 3 days ago. So I see it's still going up. So
Unprecedented.
It is.
And look at the size. It's not just that there's no historical equivalent, but look at the size of the companies we're talking about. It's pretty clear.
These are not small potatoes. These are
switching of the guard by proxy. Someone snapped their fingers somewhere. Although they all did cash in stock and do other things all the way up to the Senate, apparently.
Look at it this way minimally. If they knew something was coming, it certainly looks like they did. They dumped a bunch of stock, a whole pile of these super rich MFers, made money, everything's dropping, and then they can just buy it back for God knows how much less than they
But let's not
when they're ready
conflate these two things. Let's not conflate these two. So we do have massive insider trading.
Right.
People sold off stocks right prior to this, which clearly
including
indicates
government people, by the way,
right, including
not just
government
CEOs.
people, right?
Right.
Yes, exactly. So we have both crews. We have corporate executives who sold off stocks, which is clearly insider trading and shows foreknowledge, right? So those things should have been investigated immediately by the SEC as insider trading, and nobody's doing anything. And then you've got the politicians. There were more than 30 senators and congressmen who did the same. A few of them are now there's a little bit of noise about it, but still not much. But these are separate to me. These are separate things, right? So, so maybe connected, but they're separate events, right? So you've got the selling off of stocks and profiting from what's going on here, in addition to these stepping aside of CEOs and corporate executives. They're stepping down, right? I mean, this is unprecedented, and it's all very quiet, right? So what you should see is that this should have created a panic when a number of CEOs step away. And instead, it's being very quiet, and yet the market rebounded quickly and is now bullish, right? And so this indicates that there's, again, inside knowledge that this is profiting people, that this is not a panic. This is a profit center, and the profit is on us. Right. So those of us who are suffering financially are making money for those who have it. So that's a separate deal. But we've got these people who are both, again, stepping away from positions of power, which is, again, unprecedented. And a number of people are, suspiciously dying. That happens all the time. But I mean, are we sneaking off to Elysium? What's going on here?
Sooner Squatch 74, thank you for the 777. Says thank you for the sanity, not the sheep sanitizer. We could talk about who's taking their place for a moment, and the one I know off the top of my head is Bob Iger, the head of Disney, after doing the Fox merger, which was a gazillion-dollar thing. I forget how many billions that actually was. But the guy who they just threw in his place is a guy named Bob Chapek, who was in charge of the parks, and they were actually not doing well, so they just threw somebody in his place while he stepped to the side. But all the people doing interviews and things like that are being asked, it's still Bob Iger who's answering almost all of this stuff. So my cat just jumped on the table. That's not good. Get down.
So in other words, he's still in power. He just
not officially, of course, but it certainly sounds like it, and that's what I'm saying. And I don't know about a lot of these other corporations. Bill Gates stepping down from the boards of Microsoft and what was the other one? The other big company that he was on the board of. he doesn't need to be there anymore. I'm pretty sure he's got things pushed in the direction, launched and going for years now, so that he can focus on talking to us about vaccines.
But
Right,
here's
and
the
not
thing
only
about
that,
what
he
you
could
just
sit in his
said.
bunker.
Jason just pointed out that he was in charge of parks. So don't you see? This is the whole socialism idea. So here's a guy who was integral into the federal government kind of idea, and now he's on a big corporation. It's the merging. There's going to be no beef about whether or not your government's corporate because it's merged with all the, I don't know, do you even know the word, Baldini? Sometimes they say to try National Socialism, fascism. Is there a word for when your
Nazi.
government... Yeah, I don't know, but you see, that's
Bad German
what I'm
guys
pointing
from the
out.
40s.
Some guy in charge of all the federal parks is now in a big corporation. That's the merging of government and industry.
Yes. I just I just saw something James Dayton said in chat. In order to live, should we not play along with everything? And my answer is no. And I don't care, live or the alternative. No. Again, this is what I said earlier. I have this threshold to which I will not cross, and if that costs my temporal life, fine. But there are things that are more important to me than simply surviving. Right. So, and that's me. And I encourage everybody to make that decision for yourself and what that place is now, because again, it seems like it's coming sooner or later that you're going to be in a position to have to make those decisions about what your threshold is. And the regret's a terrible thing, I can tell you that. But no, no. For my answer is no. I don't play along at all, simply to survive. That's not living.
And I would just answer that question as to what that's called when you merge the government and business in this kind of way. I believe the official term for it is suckocracy, if I'm not mistaken, because that's what it leads to.
No, it's chupocracy. Is that what he said? Chupacracy?
Chupacabra.
Something like that, yes.
It's a cabraocracy, all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're talking all these different CEO stuff stepping down from these major corporations, and for some reason or another, they're not being investigated. Like this is a major thing, and this should be a real eye opener for people.
It should.
If they see this, and they should question. Well, hold on a second. If I was involved in insider trading, I mean, look what they did to Martha Stewart as an example of that.
Okay, so
this is what would happen. So
all right, so maybe this is our hand grenade, right? The holy hand grenade of Antioch, right? Is that we can? I've got a few
What's the number of the
articles.
count?
That
number
show,
of the count shall be 3.
exactly, and
Not
4
two.
is right out. Right?
5 is right out.
Is right out. But this is a major deal, right? Is that this is technically the textbook definition of insider trading, and there have been hundreds of executives, and there have been numerous articles written about it that clearly state that they sold off these stocks right before this going on. In fact, one of them I sent to Jason the other day, or Wayne, I can't remember who, that was actually mocking Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, that she picked the wrong time to sell, but of course she picked the right time to sell and then the next couple of articles was just saying how smart these people were, right? That this is why they're rich, because they have such a good take on things, right? That they sold these stocks off, not only saving themselves money but profiting handsomely, and that there is no investigation whatsoever. Well, this is again clear indication of foreknowledge, and that the fact that there's no investigation whatsoever of insider trading, again, and then you include the Congress people and senators in this, that immediately after a meeting on this, they sold off their stocks, more than $1 million worth in most cases, should be an indication to anyone that's got more than 2 brain cells rubbing together, that there's not only foreknowledge, but there's no prosecute, that nobody's, it's okay, right? And that there's collusion here. So maybe this is our holy hand grenade of Antioch that we can toss over the fence at our wool wearing friends, and blow that wool coat off them.
To who, though?
In
To
thy
where?
mercy.
To whom, to where? Well, I guess what I'm saying is if you want to point something out to your friends about the nature of this situation,
got it,
right, and that may not be likely to look at it, simply point them at these. These are, again, fully acknowledged, not tinfoil hat conspiracies. These are mainstream articles from Bloomberg, right, that indicate that these people sold off these stocks and profited from it, as well as those in Congress that sold off stocks immediately following meetings on this, and they're not being investigated for it. So they had foreknowledge of these events. Clearly,
absolutely.
Right?
And here I was getting a Q-tip. I thought we were going to drain the swamp, and now I'm just all disappointed.
Oh dear, yeah. Just trust the plan, right?
So Steve Mercer for $20. Steve Mercer for $20. Thank you so much. Says a year or so ago, Sophia Smallstorm reported from her studies that glyphosate produces apathy. The show is with Sage of Quay, Mike Williams, of course. And well, that's probably that combined with the fluoride and all these things. I mean, you know what goes on when you try and speak to somebody who's just not getting it. You get that kind of hazy stare, and that's if you're lucky, and they're not just like, oh, you're, kind of thing.
Well, but again, if you show them this information and they don't at least raise an eyebrow, then maybe you just move on to somebody else. But at least you can drop this on them as this is unimpeachable evidence, and it's fully acknowledged in the mainstream. There's no tinfoil around it. There's no happy tinfoil coating on it. That this is actually what happened, and this. I mean, again, any rational person sees this as foreknowledge, right? And is insider trading. It's the textbook example. It's the definition of insider trading. So the fact that this is going on, and
also proof that nobody gives a damn in the places that are supposed to.
Exactly, right.
Yeah,
and the fact that it's happening within the halls of Congress as well shows an enormous amount of collusion between those at the highest levels of power, right? That this is a plandemic, right, and not a pandemic. And then from there, if they begin to ask questions, then you can throw at them the specific examples of news media lying about this. The CBS report where they showed the Italian hospital, where they showed the dummies, and you can clearly see that they are dummies. And they'll, whoa, hey, thanks for that super chat. That's outstanding. $100 super chat.
Thank you for the $100 again. That's awesome of you, as always.
That's terrific.
You're good people.
So anyway, these are opportunities for you to take and again, plant these seeds, and there's a little bit of water, right, to throw on it as well. Is that the news agencies are lying to you, and then you could follow that up with a few episodes of Film Your Hospital, and before they get pulled off YouTube, take some download some of those of citizen journalists who are going to their local hospitals and showing that there is nothing happening there, and put those back to back with news reports of it's a war zone, and there's people standing in line, and nobody can get in. Nobody can get in the hospital. And then you go there yourself, and if you've got time, grab your friend, drive down to the hospital, and see what's going on. I did, and there's nothing going on. They just won't let you in. There's some first responders sitting outside smoking cigarettes, and you ask them what's going on. Oh yeah, it's real busy, but there's nobody there. So how many people with COVID? We don't know. That's the answers I got. So these are firsthand things that you could do if you've got people who are at least willing to look at it. And I think that's the difficulty, is to get people who are willing to look at it. But if you can, here's an opportunity, right? We got solid, unimpeachable evidence, rock solid evidence that there is shenanigans going on.
One thing about comedy is it has power, and when the My Corona videos started coming out to My Sharona, some of them got better and better, and some of them were pretty funny. They started pulling those, and that's another thing, the power of satire and comedy in a situation like this. For some reason, it has the power to undermine in a way that's not easily described, but it would just be ironic if you showed the scientific proof that the coronavirus can't live on a flat earth or something like that. But I'm just saying, that's another thing that I noticed they went after immediately, was the satire and the comedy, which is ironic because satire and comedy are pretty much mutually exempt from most of the things that are supposed to be allowed to be censored.
Right, and on a related note, we could see today that Bernie Sanders dropped out of the presidential race to spend some more time with his many, many houses.
Yes, he tested negative for presidency.
Socialism for you, capitalism for me. Listen to me, people. Socialism for you, money for me.
Yes. So, yeah.
All right, I just felt the energy level drop. We cannot have this. Let us pick this back
No.
up immediately.
Gotta take a breath. There's been a lot of talky going on.
So a baby seal walks into a club.
Oh my! I could do
Three
Mr.
blondes
Burns
walk into a
impressions.
bar. You'd think one of them would have seen it coming. Bada bing. I don't know. The jokes aren't going to get any better.
No, they're not. So
They never do.
Right.
I don't know. I got a pretty good one about Patty Black, but we better keep this moving.
Crow, maybe we should take a moment to discuss what episode we just launched today, a day early, and what its importance is.
It's for the people who have followed. We've gone to extremes and done. I don't even know how much research stacking it up against other things. For me, a hell of a lot. Turned out actually Ovid was the one, Metamorphosis was the one I was least familiar with. And I said, okay, I'll burn through it. I picked it up, there's 15 books. And I thought, isn't that the way of things? But we pointed out why the well-educated in decades gone by had a classic education and they had the myths. And what we've endeavored to show is that not only are they codifying the only stories that can be told at this time in our, I hate the word evolution, but they are a playbook as well. And we are actually, we tried to show, living a time loop. And it's based on the same stories being told over and over and over. And what we're experiencing now, Wayne did separate research from mine, and we tried to show that there's where it's all being lifted from, or part of where it's being lifted from.
Well, again, we have to talk about the importance of myth and that this is their playbooks. We've I don't even know how many episodes we've done this now, 4 or 5 already, Crow?
At least.
Right, and we're showing that there's nothing new under the sun. You can look at that how you would like. I kind of like my cool mandala behind my head. By the way, I didn't do that on purpose. I bought that because it was real cheap on Amazon. I wanted something to put behind me to.
Looks like a halo, though.
That's exactly what happened.
Jesus vibe going on. I think
And I didn't
works,
do it on
man.
purpose, even though everybody seems to think I did. I got it for like $13 on Amazon because it was cool and had some nice purple on it. And then I hung it up behind me because I wanted something other than acoustic foam for people to look at while I'm doing the live stream, since I'm doing stuff on camera now.
Dude, you need a chalice and some biscuits, and we'd be all good here.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I've got a nice tailor, so people can see that. That's about as much as I can give them.
Well, and the hair and the beard really sets
That
it
is
off.
a nice tailor.
That is a very nice tailor. I'm very appreciative to the person who got that for me. Billing Tano.
It was tailor-made for you, right?
Tailor-made, yes, indeed. Billing Tano, thank you for the $5. Thanks for all the gravy, fellas. Keep crushing. Man, we each have a giant-sized ladle, and we're going to keep using it. Hopefully the Big Bear appreciates us using his lingo.
Yeah.
Well, I'll finish the thought you started before we got on the Jesus vibe that you're emanating with your new backdrop there. Part of the whole myth thing, part of the whole myth thing too that we tried to demonstrate is a bit like being stuck in the broken 9/11 loop, where we're stuck in a count now that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11. 2, 3, that broken loop that we've illustrated in all these ways. In a similar way, these myths are doing the same thing. And we tried to analogize it by demonstrating if you show up to a sporting event, each year it's expected that someone could break a record. And every now and again, the records get broken. There's never a time when someone says, that's it, human beings can't run any faster, no more records will be broken. The exact opposite happens. People will train, we'll aim for this, we're going to break this record. Look, we broke the record again. And so what this implies is that if we're relying on the oldest myths we can see, which happen to be what we call Greece, which aren't the oldest, but that's what we can see back to, we're in a broken loop because these are the stories that are being looped along. When CNN needs something, they don't hire dudes to make up a new story. They go lift truth down the well, put a new character in, put a new costume on, and they run. So in a sense, what we're doing right here, right now, with this COVID nonsense, is we're playing another loop. And what it does is it prevents, I hate the word, the evolution of humanity from going just a little bit faster to the point where all of a sudden some lady or some man can tell a new story. And that becomes added to all the stories that were possible to be told. Did that work, or did it just sound like gibberish?
No, I think
I'm okay with it. Somebody
Made sense
asked us
to
to
me.
list the positives of our current
I was just
state.
going to go there.
Oh, good. Well, go ahead and carry it, man.
I was just going to go there. I mean, from my perspective, and I'll jump on. I'm ready to jump on that one. The positives are one of the first things is, hey guys, we're sitting here talking about this right now, right? And we have this opportunity to sit here and discuss this. Whereas in other situations, and in fact, some other places, they don't have the opportunity, and nobody's noticing, right? So the upshot is, to begin with, we notice what's going on. There's a lot of us here right now who are aware that we're being lied to, and we have the ability to discuss it amongst ourselves, to speculate and hypothesize a little bit, and to get the word out. So, and there are a number of people, as we said earlier, while there are those who are fully hypnotized and bought into the system, the number is increasing and growing that don't, and are at least asking questions. So theirs, to me, is a huge positive. And I think if we can approach that 30% line, and we're moving there, we have an opportunity to really poison their well, as it were. And I think that's an immense positive where, if there were only, 1% who saw what was going on, it would be pretty hopeless indeed. But it does seem like more and more people are becoming aware that we're being lied to, and that's a great start. And those are people are making decisions. Again, for myself, I say I have a threshold of what I'll say no to, and I'm getting to that place of standing up and saying no. And the more people I think get there, that's an immense positive in my book.
Anyone else want to take that?
Absolutely. I would say that a huge positive that we see right now is I think these social controllers made a huge mistake in not allowing the sports ball to go on television. Because think about it, seriously, there's a lot of people that are upset over this, and they're bored, and they're looking for something to do. So there's no sports on TV for them to watch. So what do? They look at the news, and they see, this news story. So they're like, hey, I wonder what's really going on with this. I'll go check social media, and they see all this stuff on social media that's not lining up with the news. So they go, let's go explore this rabbit hole and see what's going on there. So this is a whole new set of minds that are opening up to ideas they never would have considered before. So I think this is something we need to really capitalize on, because this is something that I think they really dropped the ball on.
In that same vein, it'll be very telling if Friday, which is Good Friday, has something happen, or Sunday, which is not only the anniversary of the Civil War's beginning, it's also Easter, one of the highest holy holidays for Christianity, if they have the gall to do something on one of these days. And it's a tell either way. It shows how whole hog their intention is. If they do use one of these days, they're going against basically the religious factions across this country, which are also a huge group of people. But if they hit on Saturn Day, or they go for that Monday, that's also a tell too, because it means they weren't willing to go mano a mano, so to speak. It's going to be huge. And I did make the prediction. It looked like Sunday at the time, but as I've watched this play out, I'm wondering, another shoe's going to drop, I'm convinced. But what day will it be? That will be a telling thing, I think.
No sports ball is a bit of an issue, because that's one of the biggest distractions out there.
Yep.
Right. Circus.
And again, I come back to what I said at the beginning, is that this does present an opportunity with them having people sequestered at home with nothing to do. This, for those of us who can to some degree spread truth, that this is an opportunity for us and for all of you out there to present some of this information to people and let them start digging, because one of the biggest keys to people waking up is the time to pursue it, and most people don't have that when they're making a living for their family, right? And so with this brief pause and the ability to reflect, this is an enormous opportunity.
Guitar Guy Bear, thank you for the $5. He says, paying tithes to Gravy Jesus. Thank you, my son. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Be
That's
blessed.
good stuff right there. Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have to capitalize on that, man.
I couldn't
You
even
can-
say
you
it. I'm
can-
laughing too much.
Oh man.
But
You're gonna
so
have to
seriously,
rally the
this-
troops. You're gonna have to
sport-
rally the troops if it's Friday or Sunday, Jason.
Yeah. We need the disciples. Now, the sports ball thing is one thing, but someone else said something in the chat room that caught my attention, that the homeless aren't around at the moment, and I noticed that in New Orleans too. And I don't actually know what's the answer to this one, but I know where they hang out most of the time, and I didn't see them anywhere.
Oh, that's
When I
actually
left San
scary to me.
Diego, every single off ramp. I mean, I was almost broke because I gave out so much money to people who couldn't eat. It was right after the '08 crash, and it got worse and worse in San Diego. Any off ramp you went off, there were people begging for money. And I had not even thought about that. I got to ask, man. What
I got
happened
to
to
look
those
into it
people?
too, because there's a huge homeless population here in Seattle. In fact, they've been shipping them in from a tri-state area. They've been the police have been just buying them one-way tickets to Seattle, and so it's been an artificially created problem in Seattle that most people aren't aware of. That it's been created. The cops in small towns all around a tri-state area in Oregon, Washington, Eastern Washington, and Idaho, even as far away as Montana and Wyoming, buy them one-way tickets to Seattle and ship them here.
There's something to this, man.
Yeah, there is something to it. And so if I go downtown and find that they're not there, that's really troubling, because man, that's where they start. If they're disappearing people, that's where they start, because nobody looks after them. Given the situation that we've endured the last 5 years, when the rug got pulled out from under us, I mean, we got dangerously close to being in that situation ourselves, and that created a huge compassion for me to start helping those folks out, and to paying more attention to the plight of the homeless. And man, I'm gonna have to look into that right away.
Well, here's
that's
a
true.
bad sign. I just looked it up. So the Tavistock owned and operated Fox News has this headline: "Homeless among the most vulnerable to coronavirus, experts say."
Uh-oh.
That's
This is
not a
this is
good
not
sign.
This
No.
isn't good.
Almost 200,000 people are counted homeless in the United States, but where are they?
That's a concerning thing to think about. Who knows?
How could I be so kind of blind? That person, who was it that asked that question, Jason?
Oh, I had to go back in the chat. I've been trying to pay attention to it, going back and forth here. But
Goes to
multiple
show
people,
ya.
well, multiple people are saying that hotels is where they're at, but who would be paying for that? See, this is a good question. Now, I go to New Orleans quite often because it's only right over the bridge, and that's where I usually do my grocery store shopping. The underpasses and everything where the interstates are, that's basically tent city. Like, there's tons of them around, and I haven't
ton of
seen
them.
any lately, and that's it did catch my attention. I'm like, where is everybody? This is not normal.
When Fox runs you're the most vulnerable to this, that is not a good sign. And I'd forgotten about when I was in San Diego. It was one of the things that I thought about a lot. But damn.
Well, here's the question. If you are indeed homeless, especially if you look homeless, will a hospital ER accept you and bring you in? That's another question I don't actually have an answer to. Learning to Fly, thank you for another $2. You're awesome. Been noticing a lot less in Vegas last week. Yeah, apparently just in the past 10 minutes, we've discovered all over that the homeless is not being seen. So something's up.
I'm going to have to go downtown.
They're
I haven't
saying the
been downtown to
convention
Seattle.
center. They're saying the convention
So what are they
center
doing?
in
Rounding
San
them
Diego.
up so they can't wander around? Is that it?
Well, this is weird, Jason. On the email that you sent me, what we know about convention centers, San Diego is a massive one. Neo, do you know this to be true? Do you know certainly that they're putting them in the convention center downtown?
Well,
yeah, because I can say that
here
here in Seattle, in about 3 months ago, they were trying to buy a couple of kind of derelict motels as places to house the homeless, but that fell through, insofar as I'm aware of. And I haven't been downtown Seattle in probably a couple of months. There are tent cities, kind of underneath the underpasses as you go down there. Again, there's a huge homeless population in Seattle. I just haven't been downtown, especially since this thing has started. So I'm going to have to go down and really take a look because this is that's very concerning.
Yeah, I'm going to have to start asking a few questions on the down low. Love Flow says, no way hospitals won't. Tranius for $5. The only resistance I see around is surfers, oddly or maybe not oddly. I surf, and closing the beaches is really the only thing that really angers me. Yeah, I've heard about beaches being patrolled from time to time by cops and throwing people off, so...
Yeah, and I had heard firsthand from a couple of people that after the last big hurricane was there in Houston, that the homeless population had a lot of people just disappeared, and their friends didn't know where they went, and never to be heard from again. So that was really concerning.
There's an answer. Thank you for the answer. By the way, I've given cars to Father Joe, and I'm not Catholic, but that man helps a lot of homeless people.
Informally Hip says, one of the downtown hotels is huge for taking in the homeless. I'm going to call them after the show. How do I record this call? The easiest way is actually Skype. You might have to buy a couple of dollars of credits if you don't have a Skype account like I do, where you can call normal phone numbers and all that, but it's like a penny a minute, so it's stupid cheap. It's actually what Chrome I used to use before I signed up for the thing.
Or if you have a Android or iOS phone, there's a ton of apps that you can use that just download for free that will record a call for you.
Yeah, you could do it that way.
And thanks, Ted Summer. I saw that you said you'd check downtown as well. I'm going to go this weekend for sure and see what I can see downtown Seattle, because that's immensely concerning to me.
I'm going to call family. I'm going to call family out there. It was literally when I was in San Diego, as I was leaving, every overpass had people. It was that many.
Well, I know San Francisco has a massive problem with it. I mean, you're always hearing it called Poop City and things like that. I wonder if that's all of a sudden not an issue. Jeff, thank you for the $10. I have a friend that's homeless and does work for me. He was supposed to call me 2 weeks. I haven't heard from him, and either has his girlfriend, Columbus, Ohio. So, all right, something's up, ladies and gentlemen. This is too many folks saying the same thing.
Yeah, thanks for the tip for that.
People missing? How many people said people are missing?
Anybody in NYC out there? What's the situation in NYC with the homeless? That's what I'm wondering.
You know, in some ways, that what we saw with the homelessness after 2008 is a measure of our society. It's almost like our metric, where we've come, what we've allowed it to come to the point when San Diego one day in one of the papers, they ran an article about a guy named Joe, and it wasn't one of these nonsense ones, because I'd driven where he was and I knew it to be true. He froze to death in San Diego, and there was this big article pointing out that this reflects who we are as a people, and that how could there be so many homeless. And I was broke. I was barely making rent, and my wife and I were feeding as many people as we could. It's terrible.
But I saw the note for Kent, Washington. I'll check into that. I know that they were trying to buy a couple of hotels in the South Everett and Snohomish County area for some homeless people from Seattle. But again, I know that one fell through. I'll check on Kent. But I would just ask those who are listening to check in your neck of the woods, your closest city, what the homeless situation there is like, because this is, man, as Crow said, this is a measure of society, is how we treat the most vulnerable among us, and certainly I mean, just as we've been talking, I've been thinking in the last couple of weeks, the places I normally see the people selling real change and asking for money, they haven't been there, and I didn't even occur to me, but this is deeply concerning.
Well, I took notice, but I didn't realize this was everywhere. I just thought that they were somewhere else, because there's plenty of places you can go in New Orleans. I thought maybe they just got chased off by the police. But if this is everywhere, or a lot of places, especially major areas, that's a big deal. So, Crow, maybe we can just ask folks who are members of the website to start a thread and just give reports.
I can find out. Yeah, I can find out with a phone call about San Diego, which is a good measure, because the homeless there are sky high numbers.
Yeah, and Sue Finelli said she'd check San Francisco. That's another
San Francisco.
If something sinister is going on with the homeless, that is something that if we don't take notice of, then we kind of get what we have coming.
Well, here's the thing. We can gather data on that and start reporting on it. Since we do so many shows now, we can get that info out there.
Who started? Someone, before we lose this, someone should go back and see who started that in the thread. Who was the bright light that thought what we all should have been thinking about?
Right.
You know what? Whomever was talking about the homeless, there's too much for me to go back through. So
Who asked the first question?
I'm not sure. So whomever
Yeah,
was
just
saying
let us
that,
know.
since we have a delay on this, you're going to hear me say this in a moment. So whomever first started bringing up about the homeless, please just type whoever it is in the chat there, and we'll be able to at least start coordinating this a little bit better.
Yeah, because that's one thing. Again, if they started doing that, something nefarious with the homeless, again, very few people would notice, right? Because
Yeah, I saw someone ask, why are they quoting MSN? That's exactly why, because they're the idiots casting the spells and targeting with their cleverly crafted words. And when they tell you a certain section of population is most vulnerable to a lie, you're looking at a targeted group of people. Just to
Exactly.
be clear about why Baldini recognized instantly what I was getting at.
Billy Ray, you're in New York there. How about what have you seen, if you want to give us
He said he's
He
been
just
seeing them.
posted, but not as many.
Not as many.
That's
Oh,
what
okay,
he
I
just
see him there.
typed
Yep.
in the chat.
I heard there's a tent city in Central Park that no one can quite get close to. Is there any truth to that? Does anyone in New York know?
Oh, I saw Richie on here earlier too. Richie, if you're still with us, you can give us a quickie on that too. McAlien, thanks for the $5 there. I'm here in the Bay Area. There's still homeless here, but not as much. Well, that's saying something, because the Bay Area has a just massive amount.
Yeah.
All the West Coast, because you don't typically freeze to death, but that's not true. People did freeze to death in San Diego. It does get down below freezing sometimes.
Is there anybody in the chat also that's from Salt Lake City? I know there's a fair amount of homeless that kind of migrated there in the last number of years as well. So if you want to check on that, typically they'll try to get help from the Latter-day Saints, but they often won't help people who aren't a member of that community. So. But that's kind of a stopover point there from people coming out of the cold in Colorado, because they get chased out of Denver, so they'll show up in Salt Lake City. So if anybody's in Salt Lake City area, you can kind of check on that situation there as well.
Ceiling Fan Man said, "Are the homeless the bodies the media are waiting for?" That's a pretty
Yeah,
interesting
well,
point.
that's another thing.
I didn't want to say it.
We know that
That's-
beds. Here's what happened. We knew beds were going into convention centers, and we knew that something was up with this. And so now I think 2 or 3 people confirmed that the San Diego Convention Center is claiming to have them. That's a perfect fake news photo op. You see, if you clear the homeless, get them into beds, and then film them, you can say, look, there's 1,000 people dying of a mysterious illness here. But it's also a little bit spooky to me when I see a Fox headline. I get worried about people like that when they get targeted. Because over my lifetime, the way we treat human beings has diminished. And by the time I left San Diego, homeless people weren't even being treated like human beings in the least by the city. And that was a big reverse. So it's one thing to find out that they're being used as video footage dummies to push their lie. It's another thing to find out something nefarious has gone on.
Yeah, hashtag where are the homeless? That's interesting, Baldini. Let's not let this one drop. There's something to this,
Ted Summer
I think.
started that, but yeah.
Well,
that's
I'm
it.
seeing a couple people have mentioned that some places are putting them up in motels. So I guess the motels are just being cool and letting them stay there. I mean, that's still going to be an expense, though, because electricity is going to get used. The places still need to be clean and all that. I mean, if they're doing that good, that's very kind of them. But who knows, man?
On the other hand, I'm so distrustful that I could just see that being a ruse. I gotta go find.
Well, then you know
firsthand.
where they are too. You know, if they're
With
not
you.
on the streets because they've been chased away or whatever, or they're hiding or something like that. If they're getting offers of a free place to stay, I'm sure some people are going to take that up, and then you know where to go. So, I mean, I hate to be paranoid conspiracy here kind of thing, but man, this is not the normal situation.
Let's try to look. Let's take Chicago. How many homeless do you suppose are in Chicago?
Yeah, I do have
That's
a friend.
one of the places we heard about.
I do have a friend who works in the French Quarter as a police officer, and about 2 weeks ago, he told me that they were just sort of telling the homeless to move along. When the drifters is more like what they call them there, because they just kind of hang around and play music and such. But even the last time I drove by there, I hardly saw any of them, now that I think about it. But Ted Somner, thanks for the $5. Everyone record your area and use hashtag where are the homeless. I like that. I like that a lot.
Chicago has 5,450 homeless. Let me check San Diego, because we've heard rumors about the convention centers getting beds.
Right. Yeah. We're just about
and
out of
here's
time
another,
here too,
another
so I don't know if anybody's got
Fox
any.
News headline that was saying coronavirus strikes homeless in Seattle and Los Angeles, right? So, and that's from the 31st, so about a week ago. So they're really pushing that narrative.
8,000 in San Diego. That's a low estimate. That's 2019.
I'm going to give the chat room a minute because there's a pretty big lag. If anybody has any last minute questions or any other comments of importance or anything they want to get out before we call it a night here, let me know. We'll give that a moment to catch up. I really wish I could find a way to make the delay shorter.
Yeah. So about
I don't know if there is a way.
12,500 is the count for Seattle.
How many?
12,500.
Wow.
As of 2019. It's pretty substantial.
Looks like Rose just found New Orleans homeless being moved to French Quarter Hotel with an article linked. So maybe that's
hashtag prove it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, if they're addressing it to keep people's attention away, maybe that's what's going on. There's something to this, though. I mean, my spider sense went up as soon as someone said it. It was just kind of like, boing.
Me too.
My favorite Martian antennas went up and was like, something's up here.
I know me and Jason are of a mind. We find out something devilish, and we're not going to let it go.
Right. And again, since a lot of folks are probably subscribers to the website, if you've got something, we can at least have a single thread there and then report on the data we come up with. But my email is secretsofsaturn@gmail.com. If you got something important to tell me, by all means, hit me up there. And by the way, if you want to tell me anything or get me anything that is not something you want to go through an electronic device, I started a P.O. box specifically for this. And I really should just commit this to memory already, but it is P.O. Box 5163, Covington, Louisiana, 70434. If you need to send me info or books or anything you want to get to me, documents, whatever, I will do my best.
Repeat yours again, Jason.
P.O. Box 5163, Covington, Louisiana, 70434. And if anybody else...
Here's mine.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, if anybody else doesn't have one, they're welcome to send me stuff for everyone, and I can disseminate it out too.
I've got one. The Great Baldini, P.O. Box 2248, Linwood, Washington, 98036. That's P.O. Box 2248, Linwood, two N's, LYNNWOOD, Washington, 98036.
Wait, before we wrap things up.
What's that, Wayne?
It's fine. I was going to say, before we wrap things up here, for sure, though, let's address the elephant in the room with this homeless thing. It's not beyond the realm of possibility that these people are being abducted and experimented upon. It's a known thing within different government agencies and different,
that's the first place they're going to go to.
And government subcontractors that they've experimented on the homeless in the past. So it's not something out of the realm of possibility. People are asking, are they? So there might something like Jason said, his spider sense went off immediately. As soon as I heard that about the homeless not being around, or they haven't noticed as many homeless around, that does put up a red flag for me too.
So I got a tingle on my spine.
These are it's a very vulnerable population, and it's one that if they start going missing, people don't miss them as much or realize they're even gone. So it's one of those things. If you see it, it's something I think we need to investigate a little further.
Well, we heard about a few thousand beds going into a convention center, and that would make sense with the numbers
on a priority level too. Like they had to have it done stat.
Right. So part of the problem they're having, and we know this is true, is getting the numbers they need to make this look real. So they've fudged how death certificates and all kinds of things. I could easily see how using beds in a convention center and acting like you're helping the least of us in some way, just as a photo op to fill beds, that's bad, but it's not devilish. And that's what's got me concerned. I know what Wayne was thinking about. I need to see some evidence, but I swear to you, if I find out there's reason to think something more, I won't let it go.
Me neither. I'm all over this one. And for Mr. Cut folks asking if we think people will stand up and say no to everything, I I want to say people will, but it's up to you. I mean, I've told you several times tonight that I will. I'm going to stand up and say no, and I'm at that place now. So at the opening of the show, I said I'm getting angry. Well, that anger has pushed me to a place of I'm ready to say no to the next thing. So I can't tell anybody else what to do, but I will say I hope that people find that threshold for themselves and decide where that point is that they will say no.
By the way, a lot of people will get angry if they start seeing real direct evidence that homeless are being, let's just say, mistreated, because we can't make any accusations at this point. But I mean, how many good Christian organizations, just to use an example, do what they can to take care of people? So yeah, if we can get some information out there, that's good. Jay Armstrong says, all the folks released from jail and prisons, where are they? I don't know, but I've been hearing that that's been going on. Very good point to bring up. Yeah,
I just realized for the San Diego thing, this would be simple. Just call Father Joe Carroll's village. I'm not Catholic, but I've watched that guy help endless homeless people, even train them. He even forced the city council to give up their aspirations for condominiums to put in low-cost housing for the people he was training that were homeless, because it was in the city charter and they were trying to ignore it. I gave cars, more than one, to Father Joe Carroll, but I'm guessing a call to Father Joe Carroll and a simple question, where are the homeless, would get answered pretty quick.
Alicia Shepard says that she's crippled and terminally ill and can't even get anyone local to help her to even grab some groceries with her own money and with incentive. I don't know if you want to say where you're at, but
yeah, if you tell me where you're at, I'll find somebody.
I'm sure somebody might be willing to come and help you if that's something you need. I mean, that's not cool.
Yeah, tell us where you're at. I'll find somebody.
All right, gentlemen. Anybody want to get any last words in? I hopefully got the best points out here from the chat. I'm trying to scan through again real quick before we call it a night.
I'll throw this out there, and on that last thing, if you're in need, like for real in need, and you need somebody around you, reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out. I've given you my P.O. box, my email address, unintended.consequences3@gmail.com. You can reach me there, certainly, or write me a letter if you don't trust the electronic media. I don't have any money, but I know a lot of people, and we'll try to do what we can to reach out to people and help each other out. Guys, be good to each other, right? That's what I gotta say is we can be frustrated and upset and angry with the system, but the biggest thing is that we're kind and good to one another, and even to those who are not good to us, right? So that's what I got to say is, and man, this thing with the homeless has got me kind of shook up, and I'm going to go find out right away.
Yeah, so here's a further thought on the homeless thing. Are soup kitchens and those kinds of things considered an essential place to be open? Or are they also not allowed to have gatherings of 10 or more?
They are, yeah.
I know for a fact food pantries are still open here.
Okay, so they're allowing people to do that yet. So if there are homeless people around, at least they have somewhere to go. So that's at least something. Max Darrow, I don't know what you mean. PLS 621 Eclipse. I don't know what that means.
He's going on and on, saying he's trying to get my attention. Max, just email me from crow777radio.com, but only if you've got something. I've got like hundreds of emails, so if you email me, please make it serious.
Yeah, let me reiterate that. Since this is all going on, we've been getting, I think all of us, a lot more attention than we usually do, because so many people are at home and they're messaging all the time. So I'm doing my best. I've definitely had a massive increase in the amount of people that are contacting me. I'm doing my best, and I know that Crow at least gets 10 times the amount I do. And I don't know about you other two gentlemen, but you probably get some good.
I get enough.
Yeah,
I do my best to answer.
Did we get a response of the location of the person who helps, even the coast, west or east?
Her name was Alicia. I was smart enough to prep, so I got 2 months worth of groceries about 3 months ago, but now they're down to dry beans and an empty fridge. All right, so Alicia Shepard, I know this is, again, there's like a minute delay, so if you want to put out any contact information, and if anybody in your area and where you're at, so that anybody in your area can help you, that's totally cool with me. We'll give this another moment before we sign off, just to make sure you hear me and put out your info there.
Someone make sure that she's got contact before we close the thread,
just put
please.
something up. Hang on.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your concern. It means a lot to me. It really does. I give away all of my creatives and stuff for free. If anyone's interested, you can find it all over the internet. Fight the blues. All right. Well, Alicia, I don't know if you have already heard what I just said. Man, I wonder if there's a way to fix this lag because it's really frustrating.
Just stand there for a minute.
Yeah, Alicia, if you want to give out even an email for people, that'll work. But, do what you want to do. All right, so I am going to sign us off. We will, obviously, if we put anything, or if we find out anything of note, we will put it out there. I'm going to let the full song play, so that's about 5-6 minutes, so anybody who wants to put information in the chat here can. So thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you as to my friends here on this wonderful little conversation we've had. We love all of you. We try to do our best for you, and keep that higher mindedness about you, folks. Let me let the music roll.
To see. Will speak, manifest. This all to see. Will speak, manifest beside me, my angel, for all to see, manifest beside me, my angel. The universe will speak, manifest beside me, my angel, for all to see.